Alright, so welcome to the video demonstrating how to find the gradient of a given line. And remember, as stated before, the gradient of any line is rise over run, and rise is vertical while run is horizontal. So you rise along the y-axis and you run along the x-axis. Let's take a look at this first graph here. Here we have a slope, and it slopes from upper right to lower left. Whenever it goes from upper right to lower left, the gradient is always positive. If you look at example 2, it slopes from upper left to lower right, which means that this gradient will be negative. Let's go back to the first one. Now, in order to find the slope or the gradient, we have to draw along it a right angled triangle. In order to obtain the right angled triangle, you will select 2 points. So I'm going to select 2 points along the graph. I could use this point here, and I could use this other point right here. Now what do? I simply draw. Now it's best to use a ruler, a right angle triangle along the 2 points that I've selected, and I use these 2 points. So this is 1 point right here, and this is my second point here. Now it doesn't matter how big or how small you draw the triangle, as long as you use 2 points that is on the line. It's imperative that you choose points that are on the line to ensure that you can get the exact count. Now I'm going to count my rise. So I'm counting from this point going up to get my rise, and I count from number to number. So I start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So then my rise is equal to 6. Now I will count from this point to get my run. So I am running 1, 2, 3 places. So I run 1, 2, 3. Notice I count after I have moved. So my run, sorry about that. So my run here is 3, and 3 into 6 will go 2. So the gradient or my slope for this particular line would be 2. Let's take a look at the second graph. Now remember, this graph slopes from upper left to lower right, and when it goes from upper left to lower right, it means it's going to have a negative gradient. So then I can select the points I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using this point right here along with this point. So I'm going to construct along it my right angle triangle that connects the 2 points. And it's best to use a ruler, but because I am using the phone to video, it's difficult to use a ruler. So please use a ruler for any future drawings, please, to ensure that your work is neat. And let's say it is bad practice not to preach what you teach, I guess, but just the same, right here would be my rise and right here would be my run. So to get my rise, I count from this point to this point and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have a rise which is equal to 5, and my run, R-U-N, so I'm running from right here to right here. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and my run is 4. So my gradient on my slope is rise over run, so that's 5 over 4. But because it goes from upper left to lower right, my slope is negative, so I put a negative sign. Taking a look at another one. I have my right slope. Now this one also slopes from upper right to lower left, so we will also have a positive gradient. So once again, I can select the point. So I'm going to use a big graph, and I decide to use these 2 points, but it doesn't matter which 2 points you use, the answer will still be the same. So my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my rise is 7, and my run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once again, my run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope is 7 over 5, or 1 and 2/5. So that is how we work out the gradient from a given graph. So if we're given a graph and we want to work out the gradient, that is how we work out the gradient. Let's say, however, that we are now given 2 points and we want to calculate the gradient, which is a little bit similar but yet a little bit different. Now if I'm given 2 points and I want to calculate the gradient, I'm going to name my points. So this would be my first point, I call it x1, and this then is y1, because the order of any point is x followed by y, and this is then my second point. I'm going to call it x2 and this one y2. My gradient, which is rise over run, and rise is the same as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So then my values, I simply plug them in to get my slope. It is my y2, which is 6, minus my y1, which is 2, over my x2, which is 5, minus my x1, which is negative 4. And remember, we always write negative numbers in bracket. This then works out to be 4 over, and minus negative becomes plus, so it becomes 5 plus 4, which is 9. Therefore, my slope here is 4 over 9. Let's take a look at a second example. So here we have our point 5, negative 5, and 7, 3. And I want to work out my slope. So this is then my x1, makes this one my y1, my second point my x2, which makes this my y2. So my gradient with m, which is going to be my y2 minus my y1 over my x2 minus my x1. I simply plug in the values. So then my x, starting with the y, because y is on top, so it's 3 minus negative 5. And we must show the minus different from the negative sign. And then it is 7 minus 5. This then works out to be 3 minus negative 5 becomes 3 plus 5, which is 8. And 7 minus 5 becomes 2. And 2 into 8 gives me 4. So in this case, my slope is 4. And that is how we calculate the gradient of a line, whether we're given a line or we're given 2 points. Both methods are very practical and simple. Thank you for joining.